What are you doing to make sure that inmates know what their rights are and to identify sexual abuse when it happens?
We have put in place a hotline, which is de-identified as a DOC hotline. There's no branding of that hotline information in the facilities. It is staffed by non-uniform staff, so inmates are confident that someone outside the agency or civilian staff will be answering those calls. Each incident is investigated promptly, and we also have an MOU with Safe Horizon, where inmates can contact them. It's confidential in nature, and they're provided support services and counseling services.
At the outset, I would like to applaud the Council for expressing concern for the women at Rikers. It is the case that 3 or 4 years ago, DOC too often denied admission to the nursery, often with no explanation whatsoever. After using a public comment period at a Board of Correction meeting 2 years ago to call attention to this situation, both ACS and DOC were challenged to begin following their own guidelines. For the last 2 years, the situation has been quite different. It is true that ACS review can cause a woman to be denied the nursery. ACS should answer for themselves. It is also the case that mental health issues can be a basis for denial, but these also need to be separated from the straight DOC decisions. I think it is important to separate out what are really issues with DOC, but I want to make sure that the focus is appropriate. It's very important to note that the current Singer administration under Warden Michele Clifford is an immense improvement. She actually cares about the women themselves, both in and out of the nursery, and she even uses terms such as gender differences, a phrase I'd never heard a warden or DEP use, ever. And if DOC would stop the mindless rotation of wardens, perhaps she might be permitted to stay long enough to truly implement significant change. Over the last year, there have been people trying to make a difference. Certainly, Assistant Commissioner Venters, and you heard many of his comments today, they have instituted new programs. Many of those, by the way, are too new to really have had a major impact. And I think it has to be recognized that much more intensive effort has to be made in the directions that he was mentioning. Councilman Van Bremer and Drum, where we have women in housing units, have been supportive. And Board of Correction members Hamill and Cohen have spoken up in helpful ways. But these voices and efforts are too few. They need support. Lastly, Council wants to help make a difference for women. I urge you to support alternatives to incarceration. There are good ones out there, including bail funds so that fewer women would be needlessly taken from their children. I further urge to stop putting women in solitary confinement and to end the practice of shackling women when transporting them to the hospital.